And I'll just start this. Are you there? Hey, hey.
I'm over here. I'm down here on the blue track.
There are some daddy pants you have to put on every now and then.
This might be the biggest bomb we've dropped ever in the history of Turned Up Podcast.
Broadcasting from Nashville, Tennessee, offering a glimpse inside the music industry, shedding light on things they don't want you to know, and exposing some of the industry's biggest secrets. You're listening to the Turned Up Podcast, presented by Real Sound Productions. Here are your hosts, Jake Jones.
Sing it like you did in the living room last week.
And Robert Venable.
Hey, honey. Can you hear me right now? Can you hear me? Hey, honey. So if you're just tuning in to Turned Up Podcast, this is a continuation from last week's episode. You're going to want to go back and listen to that first, because otherwise some of this might not make sense if we say, we already talked about.
Yes, go back and listen to part 1.
Blah, blah, blah. So we talked about a lot and about the psychology of dealing with artists and even setting the mood in the studio, and how sometimes our job might be a little more than just pushing buttons, a little more than just the technical stuff.
Yes, completely more. In fact, as producers, the technical stuff has really nothing to do with it. It's all just in our heads and in the artist's heads.
Yeah, it's more than just the vision. But check this out. We have a lot more we want to tell you. So here's part 2 of the whole brain games thing. Check it out.
So all the best decor, incense, candles, lighting, cool rat gear in the whole world
I know where you're going with this.
Is not going to help anyone if mom is sitting on the couch saying, sing it like you did in the living room last week. I know you could sing it like that way. Sing it that way again.
That's so beautiful. You're so beautiful. Isn't he good?
Mom.
You know what's worse than that? The momager. When you're sitting there at the console or at the desk or, whatever, and all of a sudden there's an arm that reaches over your shoulder to hit the talk back button to go, hey, honey, can you hear me right now? Can you hear me? Hey, honey, this is mom. Like, of course it's mom. Who else sounds like that? and like, mom said that, I'm just telling you right now, I feel like, are you gassy? Do you need to eat? He might need to eat. Can we take a lunch break? And like, I'm like, I smell your mom lotion on your arm. Your arm is way too close to my face. You know what, mom? Every one of you listening to this right now knows what mom lotion smells like.
For my mom, it was Avon. It was in a pink bottle, and I remember it very well.
Oh, man. That's true. It's a real thing. That's a real thing. I'm going to tweet out something about mom lotion later. There's that aesthetic of, like you said, the people being in the room. Sometimes little Bobby doesn't want to give the best performance because mom's in there listening, or afraid they're going to let mom down. More times than not, I'll have everybody clear out the studio. Yeah. I'll make it a closed session for vocal.
I was going to say, especially for vocals, people feel extra vulnerable for that.
Because it's so soloed out in the control room where we're listening, you and I, Jake, we sometimes mute the instruments and just listening to vocal playing out. And like if there's a mom in the room, like, he can do it better. But she's not listening the same way you and I are listening. We're listening for something else. We can fix the pitch. We can fix the tune, but we can't fix performance. And we're like, that was the performance we need. And like, nah, he was flat. Did you not think he was flat? We need to find a new producer. He was flat and you didn't hear that.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, let me do my job. I know what I'm doing. And you're a mom. Why don't you go, there's a liquor store down the street. We'll see you later. But clearing out the room and making it a closed session does wonders for getting a performance out of a musician who's struggling.
Well, I do want to say, and I'm going to give a shout out to a specific artist, and I don't even know if he listens to this podcast. If he does, shout out to Brooks Roman. He's a young guy. His career's just getting started, and you actually, I think,
I know
worked
Brooks
on that project as well.
Yeah, he was in the studio.
So very young. He may not be as young now as he was when I worked with him last, but
probably not the way age works, Jake.
He might be younger. I'm still confused about the whole age thing.
Mom lotion.
No, but I do want to give a shout out to Brooks's mom, actually.
Brooks's mom
I knew that's where
has got it going on. I'm not going to stop. Anyway, I don't know the words, but I'm going to keep going on along.
So Brooks,
Fountains of Wayne,
being a young man,
that song was originally called Stacy's Mom. Fun fact, I got to work with their keyboard player on a Saturday Night Live bit.
Oh, wow.
For TV Funhouse.
#random.
Steve Gold was his name, I believe.
Well, they came up.
Anyway, that was back to Brooks's mom.
I think they came from Houston, Texas.
I'm a jerk.
They came a long way to come and work with me. I was very honored. And Brooks's mom dropped him off and left. And it was one of the smartest things she could have done because it really helped. It really helped him feel confident and feel like I'm a musician in and of myself. I don't need my mom here to make sure I'm doing it okay. I think his sister was there too, and she left with the mom. And it's so important and can be a make or break sort of thing. Don't bring your friends to the studio, as cool as it might be to show them, hey, I'm at the recording, so come hang out. It'll be really awesome. At the end of the day, we're there to work, and we want to have fun. We want to, we want to create new things. We want to create good music, and it is fun, but it's all for nothing if you want to bring your posse in to hang out while you're there, and the whole time you feel self-conscious because your friend from junior high is judging you and trying to tell you how to sing better.
And just to say that, there are exceptions to every rule, and sometimes in certain genres, having more people there, I say genres. I know that when I was working in the hip hop world, a lot of artists will have, like you said, their posse, but like their group of friends there, or other artists on their label or whatever it may be in their group there, and they're there for hype or support. And sometimes they know them better than you do. So if they're like, hey man, he just needs this and then he'll be good. Or maybe if you just, I know it's weird, turn the lights as bright as they go. He likes that. And you do that and all of a sudden you get the take. Sometimes that's what they need. And sometimes like, hey man, I just feel all alone with a stranger producer I don't even know. I just met 30 minutes ago. I need my dudes here. Or where's my girlfriend? Whatever.
Do you remember the band we worked with that there were two brothers and one of the brothers was singing and the other brother was in the control room with us.
Yes.
Telling us those exact things like, oh, he actually, maybe try telling him this, like it'll work really well.
Whatever you do, don't say this.
And it did. It was awesome. It was great having that person there.
It was a life hack. But yeah, so I mean, all of these are suggestions and you have to know how to play these certain cards at certain times.
And there's then the one card. This is not going to get any better card.
So this is a tough one, and it's really hard to explain to anybody who hasn't experienced it, but having done this as long as you and I have done this professionally for a living, paying our bills, supporting our families. This is what we do. There's something, and it's real, called the talent curve.
I had never heard this theory, and it makes perfect sense until you explained it to me, and it blew my mind.
So picture this. You're in a roller coaster, and you're at the very top. You know how it goes up and up and up forever? So you're right at the very top where it's just about to peak. So you still have 5 more feet of going up, and you hit the very top, and then you go straight down for a long time. And then you start to come back up a little bit. So picture that curve.
And just gonna go total nerd sauce here for a second. Because of the laws of physics, that second, and this is important to the talent curve thing.
Yeah.
That second hill after the big drop physically cannot be as tall as the first hill.
Or else you go backwards.
Yeah, you would lose momentum.
Yeah,
so it has to be smaller.
Right.
That's why the roller coaster example is so good for the talent curve.
So keep this in mind. So you're just about the crest, the very top here of going up, click, 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 click. So that point is when we hit record for the first time. Right about the top of the roller
5
coaster.
feet away, yeah.
You got a few feet to go before you hit the very top where you start seeing the downhill and start peeing your pants. That's the moment we hit record. And the artist gives us what they got. And we're like, that's great. Let's do it again. It gets a little better because we're getting closer to the top. Gets a little better. Every take gets a little better. And then we hit the very, very top. That's the best we're going to get. And then we start going down. And we're like, hey, let's try to beat it. It wasn't so good, but I know you've got it better. So do it again. Oh, it's getting worse. Oh, it's getting really bad. This is horrible. And we're hitting the very bottom of the hill and it starts coming back up. And the roller coaster is coming back up. The talent curve is coming back up. And the artist is playing again. And you're like, yeah, that's it. It's getting better now. Yeah, one more time. That's the take. And so we're accepting that take, which is way down below the top peak, but nowhere close. You know what I mean? It's the second peak, and we're like, that's the one we're going to keep.
It's better than the worst, but the best was
300 takes back.
Right.
That talent curve, once you understand the way that looks, you start to understand that it's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. And we're going to settle for something that's half as good as what we already have. Let's move on. And as a producer, it took me, 5 or 10 years to learn that. And once you explain that to an artist, they come to terms with it fairly quickly. Like, you know what? That's right. Let's go back to take number 2 or 3. That was great. I can fix that. Or no, you know what? That's what it needed to be. That was great. Why are we doing more than that? We were pushed to our luck and we failed. So cut our losses.
And that plays so much, again, as we've said over and over and over again, into the psychology of recording. A great example is Shinedown's 45. And
great song.
Amazing song. It might have been Shinedown's breakout single, and if it wasn't, it was close to it. But I think it was their first big.
It was their big top 40 break into mainstream radio.
It's the song that
Hello World, We're Here.
Yeah, made Shinedown famous. The version of that song that everyone knows and loves, and I've said this before on the podcast, is the demo.
Dude.
It was hey, we just wrote this song, let's track the demo so we don't forget how it goes. They went later, spent thousands and thousands of dollars recording the full version of the song. But in relation to that talent curve, the crest of that roller coaster happened the first couple of times they ever recorded the song. And that's true, again, as a producer trying to get the best takes out of your artist.
Yeah.
You're going to get, especially if they wrote the songs themselves, you're going to get the best emotion and vibe and feel the first couple times because they're thinking about what the song's about.
Shy of changing something.
Right.
If you're coming up with new ideas, you heard it 3 times, like, wait a second, what if we try this? That's a different thing. We're talking about doing the same thing repeatedly.
30 takes in, they're thinking more about their vibrato and where they're standing in relation to the microphone and less about what they're even singing.
Their fingers are going to get more sore if they're a guitar player. Their hands are going to get stiff if they're playing drums. They're going to get sweaty in there. Their voice is getting shot if they're losing their range if they're a singer. Their arms are getting tired if they're an accordionist. I made that one up. I don't even know if that's a real word. And their lips are getting tired if they're a flutist. It's just one of those things. A flautist. You're going to lose that perfect take. And I have 2 examples to back that up besides your Shinedown one.
Let's hear it.
One, Adele, her breakout record. A lot of that was the demo vocals. Like, we just can't beat that. That was you playing piano and singing at the same time. We can't beat that. Let's make the record with it.
I didn't know that.
Dude.
Wow.
If you go back and listen to it, sometimes you'll hear some things in the background or click and stuff like that, which was just left in because she just nailed it. And I have mad respect for her. Adele, tweet me. Secondly, I'm friends with, and he was one of my teachers at the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences in Tempe, Arizona, Kevin Becca. He's a producer and engineer, and he worked with Michael Jackson. And he was telling me a story about how on one of the Michael Jackson songs, MJ was like, let's do it again. 120 something mixes of one of his big songs. Almost was like Beat It or something like that.
Wow.
And they went back to mix number 2.
Wow.
And that was the one that made the record. Like, they kept saying, change this. So the talent curve is real for engineers too. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, let's try this. You know what? Let's go back to number 2. I just like that one the best.
There's just something about not overthinking things. Sports are no different whatsoever.
Yeah.
The harder you think about that golf swing or that basketball shoot, whatever it is,
you get in your brain, dude,
the worse you're going to be. And that's something I'm horribly guilty of is living inside of my brain. But I want to talk about something really quick.
Go ahead.
What happens if the roller coaster stalls out before it ever even makes it to the hill? What happens if you start and unfortunately
abort.
It happens with bassists, I think, more than anyone else with a band. Not when you hire a studio bassist, but for some reason, for some reason, bands are like, "Oh, we need a bassist." I don't know. Carl can do it. Carl, do you own a bass? You don't? Okay, you can borrow mine. It's easy.
We'll get somebody to play bass. It's fine.
But
our neighbor from church is really good. She, Miss Mabel, she's 86 and she's got a bass guitar and she's great at it. She can play with her feet on the organ, so I'm sure she can do it with her fingers on a bass guitar.
So, but it does happen with vocalists. And this doesn't really work so much with vocalists. Although you have
first-hand experience. Right? A-list celebrity who you know the name of wasn't singing her lead vocals. Well, that narrows it down to half of them because it's her. It was not Kelly Clarkson. She can sing. But a different female artist whose background singer sang all the lead parts that she couldn't sing.
Yeah.
Lead parts.
So what happens when the artist, the performer, just can't do it?
You hire somebody else. You get a session player.
They get ghosted.
But sometimes all you need to do is threaten that, and you can get a killer performance out of a musician.
That's true.
Sometimes it's just like, hey, totally cool, man. I've got a guy. My favorite line, I've got a guy. In Nashville, we've got 500 guys that we can do to get this, like $50. We'll get him in here and he'll do it. It's like, or use the line, oh, that's great. That's a great guide track for the session player. We'll come in and replace it later. And they'll be like, wait, what?
It's one of those, it's a good way to not sell records.
Yeah, it's one of those lines. And that'll kind of light a fire under their butt and make them get up and be like, you know what? I need to concentrate more, or I need to do this, or maybe I should pay attention to my fingering on the guitar or the bass or whatever it may be. And you get what you need out of them.
But Robert,
what?
You're taking the protagonist approach. You're taking the silver lining approach.
I'm a silver lining guy. The glass is always half full, dude.
There are
Always.
times when it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
It's happened to me. It's happened to you.
It's happened to
us
everybody.
together.
Yeah.
When a band gets in and for some reason we thought they were going to be amazing because we heard a previous recording where they probably did the same thing.
My hands are on my head right now. I'm just nervous about where we're going with this because
they just couldn't do it.
I know.
And there is a protocol that every producer, every engineer and producer have together when that happens. And what is it?
Remind me of a horror story I'm going to tell you in a minute about this.
It's a code word.
But dude, this is true. This might be the biggest bomb we've dropped ever in the history of Turned Up Podcast. There's a code word, and this is going to scare a lot of you, especially if you're musicians. Oh man, I'm hesitant about this. So
are we shooting ourselves in the foot?
We are, in a way, and everybody we work with from like this point forward
is going to be listening for a code word.
Is going to be listening for a word that doesn't make sense. There's a phrase or a word that you set up ahead of time as a producer. It's like, hey, if this band isn't cutting it, or if this player is the weak link, we'll say a phrase so you and I can communicate, verbally in the room in front of other people, so it doesn't look shady, that we'll know it is what it is. It's one of those things where we're like, we can replace this later. When the band leaves, you or I will play the guitar or drums or bass or whatever it is and fix it ourselves faster than what it's going to take us to get this performance out of this artist, because they just don't have the talent, or sometimes it happens. Sometimes there's a really talented band and one of the players just is even having an off day or whatever, and you don't want to hurt their feelings. I'm like, we can fix this. We can match the tone. We can match the part. We can play it. And I don't want to be, I have no ego. I don't. I do know what my skill sets are. And Jake, I know you're the same way. But between the two of us, we could probably make whatever happen. Whatever needs to happen.
Yeah.
We can't play everything, but we can fake it.
Or we can find people.
Who can play it to play whatever we need played and make it happen.
And the thing, okay, so one of the producers my previous band worked with always used a guy named Josh Freeze.
The dude is a ridiculous drummer. You might know him from A Perfect Circle, but he played all the drums on Fallen, the first record from Evanescence.
Well, and fun fact, Josh Freeze has played the drums on probably more records than either of us will ever know.
One of the greatest session players ever. So technical, so consistent. You know what you're going to get. And he's so relatable.
He could change his name to Ghost.
Yeah, he's just the guy.
He has ghosted so many drummers and so many drum parts where bands come into the studio, their drummer does his thing, the engineer says, "That was great." Producer says, "Oh, it was awesome. Good job." And then band flies back home. Josh Freeze comes in, plays the drums, and kills it. Band gets the mix back, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, it sounds great. I guess I did a great job."
With 100% certainty, but it has to be kind of ambiguous. I can't say who it is, but I know I'll tell you off the podcast, and maybe I'll tell our secret Turned Up Facebook page for our patrons what it is. I don't even know if I can do that. But I know that Josh Freese played drums on something that I was supposed to play drums on, something that I wrote the drum part for and I didn't show up for. On a huge record.
Wait, I think I know what it was.
I've had some big opportunities, Jake, things that I don't even know that I've told you about that I could have done, that my wife and I decided it wasn't in the best interest for me and my family at the time. But there was something that happened that came up that could have happened that would have changed my life forever, probably. And we made a decision against it, and he was called in to play it.
Let me ask you this.
Okay, go ahead.
Was it?
Welp.
Really? Oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me.
Dude, I'm telling you.
Wow.
I've had an interesting life.
To say the least.
There's been something come up that, like bands I've been a fan of, that I was asked to play drums for, that for some reason or another I couldn't. And I'm like, I wonder if I should have done that. But no, man, I just love being on the other side of the glass. Anyway, I digress. So there is a code word that sometimes that you and I will use, and we can change it up if someone's onto it. But one of those things that won't come up accidentally, that will say like, hey, blah, blah, blah. Let's, for the sake of this podcast, say armchair. Like, dude, so the guy's in there playing guitar, and you and I just go like, dude, I just got a new armchair at home from Pier 1, and it's ridiculous. And
to which
all of a
I
sudden,
would respond, oh yeah, that's yeah, I heard about that. That's really cool. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, all right, pay really close attention to what he's playing on guitar so that I can play it again.
It's a whole secret language that you and I will speak in order to get accomplished what we need to get accomplished. And that happens.
Fun fact, really quick.
Go ahead.
I recently just got an endorsement through a top tier software company because I completely retract.
Yeah. I was there for that whole birthing of this.
Yes, I completely retract some parts. I completely retract an entire record.
The whole album, dude.
What I did.
You can't say that.
But I wound up told the company about this, and they not only heard it, but also telling them, yeah, the band not only didn't know what I had done, but also liked it better. Thought I had worked some sort of wizardry or magic.
You were so good with audio, dude.
Yeah,
magic.
And so yeah, that's it happens a lot. And the truth is, really quick before we move on to this next thing, there's a reason for that. It's not just because we think we're better. There are times, a lot of times, where we're not just talking about the band whose lives are tied up in this recording. We might be talking about managers. We might be talking about record labels. We might be talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars tied into this.
People's livelihoods.
And if homeboy drank too much last night before the session,
or during the session,
and he's not cutting it, then
true story.
It doesn't matter. Those parts have to sound great. And so that's the reason for it. It's not just because so-and-so sucks or whatever.
Quick story. I was in New York working with a band, and all of their moms were in the studio with me. This story is already off to a great start. And one of the guys, like the mom was just like over the top. Wait till you hear his guitar solo. Just wait till you hear the talent of this guy. And like some of that is like, you just learn to expect that when you're in a place of like in our career where you and I are, Jake, where we've worked on big things and people want to be noticed. They think that we are the end all of that, and we are going to help them become famous because all they need is a big producer to hear their guitar solo. So the mom of this 15-year-old is like, you just wait till you hear his guitar solo. And the guy plays, and I'm like, bing, bong, bing, da, 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 da. And she's over there tearing up, crying. It's so good. And I'm like, I'm looking at my, I don't want to call him assistant, but a buddy of mine who who came along with me to New York and engineered for me while I was producing. And I looked at him like, gave him the little code word with a little wink. And he's like, I got you, bro. So the band leaves for the night. We send them on dinner break.
You're like, oh, that's great. That was great.
I'm like,
good job.
Let me do a little editing.
Yep.
A little studio magic. They leave the studio, and it's a big studio, and it's well secured, so they have to go through like a check-in process to get in. Anyway, start my dude who's there. I'm like, dude, get in there, get his guitar, let's tune it up first of all, and let's retrack this part. And it's like, it is an easy part. We record it and re-record it, and everybody comes back. And we're listening through, and I'm like, I've edited everything, like drums, and I tightened it up. I did some editing in the little time that I had left after recording the parts. And the kid's like, is that what I played? And I'm like, oh, crap.
What did you say?
So I said, here's another secret. I'm just going to say it. There's a way that producers talk, we say things that we imply one thing and not necessarily lying, but inform you of a different thing. Like, so in this particular case, I said, dude, I just did some editing, and what do you think?
That's your answer.
All I did was I did some editing. What do you think? I didn't answer his question. He goes, did I play that? That's not what I played, did I? I'm like, man, I hate to brag, but I'm pretty good at editing. What do you think about it? Like, I didn't lie. But it's producer talk for like, let's change the subject.
Right.
And he's like,
no,
wow.
you didn't.
It's like, it doesn't even sound like anything I played. And I'm thinking, did we play the wrong part? No, we did it lick for lick. We just played with an in-tune guitar and played it in time. So yeah, it's one of those things where you have to kind of use some side speak and kind of get your point across without saying, you don't want to lie to them.
And that may sound harsh towards an artist, but the truth is, at the end of the day, their fan base is going to hear it. Their audience, whoever they're releasing this to, and they're not going to think, man, that producer's engineer or hired guitar player sure did a great job. No, they're going to think, man, that band is awesome. That guitar,
dude. And even with big bands who have session players play, they are trained to say thank you when someone's like, dude, you nailed that solo on that record. They say thank you, because you don't want to let them down as a fan. But
what you said specifically, just to clarify, there are bands who
big bands.
Know, big bands.
Your favorite bands
who know that they're not going to be recording the record. Like,
it's common practice.
Their guitar player will never step foot in the studio. They may have written the part.
Slash.
Right. They may have written the part. They may not have written the part. Doesn't matter. For this specifically, they know that what's going to happen is at some point in time, they're going to get a version of the recording as it's almost finished or finished, and then they'll learn the parts that someone else played. And then they're going to go on tour, and 1,000 people are going to say, dude, I love your guitar solo there.
I listen to that song on repeat.
Yeah. And then
you just say thank you.
Thank you. And I love, there's a producer, he's a mutual friend of ours, who just tells the band straight up ahead of time. Like, you guys might be great, and that's cool. Just to save time and money, we're going to have the song tracked before you even come down. So
I do that sometimes. You do that sometimes.
Yeah. And there are, for me, I've been an artist as long as I've been a producer.
True statement.
And kind of growing up in both of those fields simultaneously, I have a sort of empathy for artists and the excitement that goes along with recording in the studio. And I don't know if it makes me dishonest or not, but whether a band is good enough or not, you can't fake the vocals, but you could fake it for everything else.
Right.
And so most of the time I will say I'm at a point in my career where I get to pick and choose which bands I want to work with, and I choose to work with bands that are good. But sometimes you think a band is amazing and they come in and you realize very quickly, their last producer,
you're also good at
everything.
Yeah.
And every once in a while that happens. And so it's like, I would rather give the entire band, experience that is unforgettable and amazing and fun. And then, I can go back later or hire people, and I'll put it in the budget, to retrack the parts, because I want them also to have the most amazing recording possible.
This is your business card, by the way. We don't have physical business cards. This is what if people hear this, they go, who produced this?
Right. If Homeboy comes in and he's botching that guitar solo and you don't decide to go retrack that solo while they're on their lunch break, that reflects poorly not just on them, but also on you.
And they might not know why something sounds bad. The average listener might not know why this song sounds, what's wrong with it? It might just be poor editing, slightly off-tuned guitars, like whatever it is, it doesn't sound professional. And our job, Jake, is to make it sound professional.
At all costs.
And sometimes that is replaying and replacing things or getting inside their brain and convincing them of one thing when something else is happening. But one of the biggest things that you and I have to deal with is the first 10 minutes we're in the studio with an artist.
I will say the biggest thing. You get one first impression.
And it's not even about impressions sometimes, which it is, but sometimes it's, you have to learn their personality. You have to get to know them because as an artist, they're coming in to work with this many times stranger. They know your work, but they don't know you. And they're like, cool, you want me to go pour my heart out on a microphone and I don't know your last name or whatever it may be. So you have to kind of break the ice. You have to get to know them. You have to be a friend to them. You have to be a safe place. You have to be
someone they trust.
The studio is very vulnerable. It exposes every little weakness emotionally, psychologically, and physically that you might have. Like if you're in there pouring out your soul with lyrics and singing and your voice cracks, or maybe you are gassy and this has happened where we hear a burp or a toot on the mic.
Toot.
That mic I'm trying to be PC.
Poot.
A little pooty. A little farfignugan on the mic. We've heard it from male and female, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, did you just hear me toot?" And I'm like, hey, "What toot? I was sitting here talking." In the meantime, I recorded it and already sampled it in 2 hip hop songs.
That is so true. You have played that for me.
I have played you. Hey, listen to this. This was this artist, but pun intended. But it's very vulnerable. It's a very weak place for you as an artist, and we have to make you feel comfortable. And we have a few minutes to do that before we're like, hey, let's mic you up and get this going. So we have to get to know you. We have to be a safe place. We have to be a friend. We have to be a buddy. But there's a difference between being a buddy and being your dad.
There are some daddy pants you have to put on every now and then. Because, like you said, it's your business card. It's my business card. It's our calling card when this recording goes out. But also time is money. And, unless you're charging per hour, which I don't know many producers or engineers. Well, I know engineers, but I don't know many producers that charge per hour. They charge per, chunk of work.
Song or album or day or whatever it may be.
If it's going to take, if the band is goofing off the whole time, if, if they're on the phone, if they're playing on Facebook or whatever it is.
That's a real thing.
Sometimes you have to put your daddy pants on.
Kids, pay attention.
But at the same time, if you're doing that the whole time, if you're just like, I'm Mr. Dad, I know what I'm doing, and you don't because you're, whatever, then you're killing the vibe. And so there is that balance of daddy pants versus, being your buddy and we're in this together.
And we've talked about what kind of connection you have to have with the artist already, like on some kind of deeper emotional level. And that needs to be organic. You can't fake that. They'll see right through that, but you do need to get to know the person in order to be able to figure out how you need to manipulate them later, which is true. You do.
Oh, yeah.
You have to get to know them to know how they'll react to what you say, but to know how to work with them. And it seems like what we're saying right now is like, man, everything you guys do in the studio is fake. I thought we were friends. No, we are friends, but we have to think about this. And it just sounds weird to say out loud. But on some level, we all do this on a social level every day. You don't go up to someone and say, oh, I see that mole in your face. You have a mole in your face. Mole. I can't concentrate because of the mole in your face. It's things you don't say, but you do notice. And these are things that we do say in the studio. Jake's pointing to his mole on his face and pouting. But we have to use these things in the studio in order to accomplish what you want to have accomplished.
Which is important as a producer. Again, you have to figure out what is the goal of the artist. And your job is to bring about that goal. And also maybe sometimes to help them discover what it is.
the whole artist development thing is a real thing that you and I do as a producer, where we have to kind of craft and use like as if they're like molding clay. We're going to like say, hey, you have a good start. You sound like a million other bands that are out there. What if we do this and squish the clay a little bit? And they're like, holy crap, why did we never think of this?
A great example, I was actually just talking about this on the phone this past week. There's a band that you and I both worked with, and I reached out to them ahead of time and I said, what are we doing here? What is your goal with this recording? What do you want to do? And their answer was, our goal as a band is to get signed to a major record label. That's what we want. That's where we're headed. And I said, cool.
Them?
Okay. Right. That's another podcast.
That's a whole other podcast.
So I said, okay, great. So now let's talk about your music. Your music is not anything that a major record label is going to want to work with. And
it's just not commercially ready.
The thing is, that's not bad. That's not a problem.
There are tons of artists who are making a ton of money and that you know the names of that have a cult following that aren't record label material.
And so as producers, we have to kind of let them know, okay, you have a couple of options here. You're not going to get signed to a record label sounding like that. So option A, we completely change your sound to something that a record label would want. As your producer,
you're not something that you're not. Which
right, exactly.
Can be some pushback.
And sometimes artists are totally like, cool. Yeah. Our literally our main focus, the whole reason we started making music was for no other reason than to sign to a record label, and they will sound like whatever they need to sound like,
whatever you need them to sound
to accomplish that goal. And in this particular instance, the band said, well, no, we don't want to change our sound. That's not us. That's not what we want.
Cool.
So then we go to option B. Don't change your sound. You have a fan base. You're killing it. You sound amazing. There's nothing wrong with the way you sound. Again, this is art. At the end of the day, no matter what's happening, it's all art. And in art, there is no wrong answer.
Right.
What you might call an ugly painting,
it's however it's interpreted, man.
Someone else may look at that and pay $1 million for it. And so for that reason,
Jake, you and I were at the Louvre last week. Literally last week in the Louvre in Paris.
Yep.
And we saw some paintings that were like, what the crap? Look at that. I could have done that. And literally, there are some that the faces look disfigured. They're supposed to be realistic. It's not like an abstract artist painted this. This was supposed to be realistic, and the head is 5 times too big than it was supposed to be. I'm like,
if I closed my eyes and used my left hand
and
only,
squinted and looked the other way.
But the truth is, it's as producers, we have to figure out what those goals are, and then we become coaches. We have to say, okay, your goal is completely unattainable at this point in the game.
Right.
We need to either change your goal, or we need to change the product to match your goal.
There's a huge difference between goals and expectations. And I think that's where you're going with it, is that what you think needs to happen and what will happen realistically are two different things in a lot of cases. And you have to portray that to them. You have to get that in their brain, like, hey, if you want a label deal, you and I have worked long enough to know what it takes to get a label deal. And it's not hard. I know that a lot of you listening are thinking that, what? We want that? Well, tweet us.
Right. Yeah, it's not that hard.
But it's as hard as getting a loan at the bank. And sometimes even easier than that. But it's you have to understand we know what we're doing, and we have to portray that without being cocky, and we have to portray that in a way that you understand and that doesn't let you down or totally deflate you, because you have goals, and we have to make those expectations meet those goals, or at least meet in the middle somewhere. And we're like, hey, I know you want that. What if we get you to here and you can get to the goal later? But right now, where you're at, I don't know that's attainable. Let's at least try to get this done. We'll get you a good recording. What you do with that, who knows what's going to happen after that. But at least we'll get this part done. Let's expect a great record, fun times and memories to be made for the rest of your life in this studio the next week or two. And we'll go from there. We can promise that, but we can't promise what we can't control.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference between goals and expectations, and we can help you meet those goals, but we can give you realistic expectations in the studio.
Very true and very good.
Thanks.
So kind of in conclusion or to wrap up, at the end of the day, all of this is great and good, but as producers, like the thing we fight against the most or have to work with more than anything else is ourselves, our own minds, our own tendencies, our own ruts, our own...
And that's a real struggle, and sometimes more of a struggle than dealing with the artists.
Real quick story.
Go ahead.
We worked on a record, my old band, and our producer, there was a person within the production process that our producer was saying, you don't want to work with him because he's going through XYZ in his life, and that has completely affected his work, and he's not doing a good job now,
which does happen.
And so our own minds, our own lives, our own day-to-day is kind of can sometimes be our own worst enemy. Something I have to remind myself of, and I know you too, we've talked about this a lot, is this might be something that we did yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before.
Thousands of days before that.
But for this artist, it might be their first time or even just their third time or whatever.
Could be their only time this ever will happen. This might be some kind of weird exclusive opportunity for them.
It's special, and it needs to be inspiring, and it needs to be, whether they are successful or their record falls flat, whether they...
Or you know that it'll never go anywhere. You got to treat it like, and I've told this to everybody who asked me for advice on getting started in the music industry as a producer. I'm like, if you have to work for free at first, treat it as if you're getting paid $1 million.
And that's some of the best advice I've ever heard.
Literally, if you're getting $1 million paycheck on this, you treat it the same way. Because for that artist, this might be their $1 million album. This might make $1 million. It may only fall on the ears of their brother or their mom. And it may go to mainstream radio and be the biggest thing you've ever worked on because you treated it as if it were.
Yeah.
But I know, Jay, you and I do the same thing every day, day in and day out. And though the variables change and the artists and the genres change and the sounds change and whatever we're doing physically for that album every day might change, we get out of bed and we're like, is it time to start working yet? Because we both have studios we can work out of at our houses. We have places where we can just walk 10 feet down the hallway and be like, hey, let's get some work done. We don't have to go into a commercial recording studio to do something today. We can work from home. We can do that. We are both blessed and fortunate to be able to do that and spend time with our families. But that's also a curse because we're like, you know what? I can just go up later. I'm really big into this Fortnite competition right now. And I just got a new skin and I want to try it out. And I don't know, whatever the Fortnite lingo is.
I was going to say Fortnite talk.
Fortnite.
I tried it once.
But it's one of those things, keeping ourselves mentally in the game. And all the same things apply that we deal with artists, the vibe. We might light a candle or incense if we're in the studio by ourselves.
Yeah.
Because it changes things. As we have incense lit right now, we might watch a YouTube video or a documentary on another recording artist or producer or engineer that inspires us. And like, I've been doing this for 15 or 20 years, and I watch, Sound City or whatever with Dave Grohl from Foo Fighters.
It's a good one.
And I'm like, you know what? That just makes me want to go up to the studio right now and push some buttons. I have nothing to do, but maybe I'll just go up there and do something. I'll go visit an old mix and change something or start on something new. I don't know. But you got to find that inspiration. You have to find that psychology angle in your own brain. Like, you have to convince yourself of something other than like, I could sit on the couch and watch Cops all day, or I can go up and be creative. Like, there's a battle we have to fight personally. Every day.
There are many days where Cops just sounds like a better option. Or lately for me, it's been Making a Murderer season 2.
I've gotten one episode into that. It's really good.
Gosh, it's so good.
But another thing that we deal with and that other producers and engineers deal with is like, you know what? We don't punch a time clock. We don't clock in every day. We don't show up to work at a restaurant or have a schedule we look at where like we have to be there at 8:00 tomorrow morning. Let's go to bed. We kind of do what we want as self-employed people. We set the bands ask us, what time you want to start in the morning? We're like, are you better in the morning or afternoon? or evening. Like, we're night people. Okay, cool. We'll come in at 2:00 tomorrow afternoon and we'll start working. But sometimes we're like, you know what? If we get started earlier, I can also work on this other project, and I have to pay my phone bill, and I've got this coming up, and my kids' like tuition and all whatever it may be. We might be thinking money, and that snaps us out of our creative mindset.
Yeah.
So we don't think about money. We don't think about time it takes. Like, oh man, this is going to take 4 hours, but we can get it done in 2 hours, and then I can get this done, or I can go play Fortnite. Whatever, or whatever it may be. That's all like real life distractions that we have to bring ourselves out of, and that's something that I know that I battle with. One way or another, it's easier to do something fun. Or relaxing or brainless. I know that music isn't fun. But I keep saying Fortnite. Like Fortnite, it'd be easier to sit there and play a video game. Or maybe easier to go downstairs and eat the Kit Kats from last night's Halloween trick-or-treating stash.
Well, I think one great remedy for me and it's a sort of thing that may or may not, it might contradict intuition. But something that really helps in practice is, and I've heard a guy named Graham Cochran call it this, the creative switch.
Okay.
But I've done this before, and it's what it is changing something fundamental about your process, about your production process, your recording process, and forcing yourself to do things differently. And, I think in his example, literally, he changes DAWs completely, his recording software, to something he's never used before.
I'm about to do that just to try it out.
Where he's forced to do things not out of habit, but out of intent and purpose. It's, I need to do this and I don't know how, rather than this is what I always do. And sometimes changing it up and just finding things that inspire you, as funny as it sounds. A microphone that may or may not sound better than another can be the difference in an amazing vocal take for an artist or not. Not because that microphone is better or worse, but because of the way that you think about it. And, you can go on Google right now and find 1 million studies on placebos. And, for anyone who doesn't know, a placebo is, in medical terms, a placebo is a drug that actually does nothing. Usually there's some kind of sugar pill.
Nothing, absolutely nothing.
They do nothing. And in trial studies of medicine, what they do is they'll take half of their participants randomly. The participants don't know. And they'll take half of them and give them a placebo and tell them that it's the drug that they're trying out. And then they'll give the other people the actual drug, and then test the results together. And that helps them better understand what the medicine is actually doing and whether or not the people who, whatever, you can look it up. But
Google it.
All that to say, the music industry is no different. And placebos, just like you were saying, the producer coming up and moving a fader that's not actually affecting anything, for him, that might just be the difference in that producer being inspired and feeling good about the recording, whereas maybe he was questioning it before.
Right.
And so, it's right before we started recording this, I'm about to get a controller for my software. It's whatever, it doesn't matter. It's a piece of hardware, but
blah, 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 blah.
It's not something I need. It's not something that anyone listening to any songs I produce is going to hear a difference, but whatsoever.
Dude, changing that one variable, you're going to get excited about coming to the studio again.
Exactly.
Not that you're not, but it's a new fire. It's adding to the fire. And I get it. New gear, new plugins, new software, new artist, all that stuff, just changing up the daily, rigmarole is one of those things where it just lights a new creative inspiration fire.
So production, making the best record, yes, having good sounds, good instruments, good equipment, whatever, all of that is good and probably important, but it's really the psychology and emotion behind what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, maybe because of social media and our ability to share this knowledge more easily and frequently, people are realizing that a recording made out of your bedroom at home is more than capable of topping the biggest, best chart in the whole world.
Yep.
as opposed, you could bring someone into the most expensive recording studio there ever was with the best everything, and it never amount to anything. Because at the end of the day, the psychology is the most important thing, and I will argue that to my grave.
And with all that being said, there's so much psychology and there's so much brain games, if you want to call it that we play with ourselves, with our artists, with you, the listener of the music, in order to accomplish what the industry thinks we need to accomplish, what we want to accomplish, what the artist wants, and what you want to hear. And there's just more to it than what meets the eye. And I think that, sorry for the long podcast, that we got our point across, hopefully. And if you have any questions about it, feel free to hit us up on our social medias at Turned Up Podcast or on Facebook.com/
Turned Up Podcast.
Or all three W's and then a dot.
TurnedUpPodcast.com.
Yeah. And you can also go to iHeartPodcast.com and vote for us, which is a huge thing that we've been talking about right now. The iHeart Music Podcast Awards, which is kind of cool. We've been talking about this a lot.
Yes.
And man, I just think about it a lot. I'm honored to be associated and in a group with all of these other podcasts. There are 5 others in our music category for Best Podcast of the Year. But did you know, Jake, that there are 550,000 podcasts on iTunes Music right now, and we are one of the top 6 that iHeart decided that we need to be the music podcast of the year.
550,000.
Yeah, dude, that's a lot of podcasts. 500,000 podcasts, and somehow we fell on somebody's ears, like yours. And you know what? We couldn't have done it without the help of our patrons.
Yes, thank you so much. Every week over week, month over month. Our patrons make this podcast possible.
It's true. And I'm looking at the list right now and I'm scrolling and I can't name them all. How about this? I'll name the ones. I'll give a shout out to the ones that all joined in the month of October, the month that we just got out of. Here we go. Let's just go down the list here. We've got Katie Mouse. We've got Seesaws and Michael J. And what's his? Davin Casey. Oh, he's from the band. What's his band's called?
Story of a Ghost. Davin actually just texted me today.
Yeah, what's
up, Davin?
We both worked with that band.
Yeah,
such talented people. Laura Annalise, and oh my gosh, yeah, there's just tons here. I'm just scrolling here. Thank you all for making this possible. And if you want to be a patron, you want to shout out, you want to be in the studio with us as we record, just go to turneduppodcast.com and up the upper right-hand corner of the page, click on
Become a Patron.
Yeah, just click on that and follow the instructions.
You can literally, it's as little as $5 a month, which, I mean, gosh, think about it. So I love Coke Zero. I love it. It's $1. I think it went up to like $1.60, $1.80. I don't know. It's a lot.
Yeah.
If I bought one of those once a week, that's more than $5
money. Yeah. Your math is so good, Jake.
I'm math good.
I'm really good at numbers and letters.
So yes, it's so it could be as much as little as $5 a month, or as much as $20 million.
Only 20 million. So please don't try to donate more than that.
Yeah, if you go over that,
you're just weird.
Yeah.
But no, we do appreciate you, and it does not go unnoticed. And actually, some of the financial benefits of this of being a patron is helping us get to LA for the iHeart Music Podcast Awards, so we can be there in person and watch somebody else win. I don't know. I hope we win. But you can actually vote. You can vote up to 5 times a day.
5 times. You get 5 votes every time you log onto the website. And of course, you can also go on any social media and vote as well. There's 3 hashtags. If you go on to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you can see what those hashtags are. And every single vote, even if it's just one vote, helps us more than you can even possibly imagine, as well as ratings and reviews. Those are the difference in us not showing up on any charts ever.
That's true statement.
Or showing up at number 1 and being nominated for the iHeart Music Podcast
first one ever
of the year,
which is crazy.
And it's completely because of our listeners and no one else.
You did this.
If a podcast falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it,
does the Pope poop in the woods? We don't know.
It's something like that.
Anyway, I think that's right.
I encourage you, please, not only vote for us on the podcast awards, go on to whatever you're listening to this on, Castbox, Overcast, iTunes, Stitcher,
Spotify,
iHeartRadio. Please, please, please rate us. If you hated it,
We only want 5-star ratings if you hate us.
And if you love us,
that you can also give a 5-star rating. It's crazy how that works. They both mean the same thing, but
they
different
mean
things.
the exact same thing. But more than that, we're about to start a new segment on the podcast called Our Favorite Review. So we have gotten some hilarious reviews on the
There are some. You should go read them.
different platforms.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to start reading them because they're too funny not to read.
It's true. I've even seen one that my brother wrote, and I'm not going to tell you which one it is. You should go on the Apple Music site, I think it is. One of the reviews on that one, the Apple Music podcast. You'll probably figure out which one is related to me. But all of them are cracking up about my age, which is weird. I don't know why. I'm not that old.
It's like being 500 years old isn't that big of a deal.
Since when is that a thing?
But yes, I'm excited to start reading some of those because they are so funny. But if we just read the ones that are there right now, and that's all the ones there ever are, then eventually we're going to run out. So go on, leave your review. And if it's hilarious, we want to read it on the podcast.
And if it's sad, we'll read it on the podcast. And if you're really just making fun of us, like it's the whole mean tweets thing, I'll probably read it on the podcast. I'm into that. So please insult Jake, comment my age and where you were when we first met and which century it was. And if you're into reincarnation, which life you were in. I don't know how that works exactly, but
For Robert, it's all been the same life.
I've never reincarnated. I've just been me.
You haven't died yet.
I know.
So thank you all so very much for listening to the Turned Up podcast. Of course, a huge shout out to Real Sound Media for making this podcast possible and giving us this platform. And as always, until next week,
This is Nashville signing out.
peace.
Bye.